Hi, Zizaran here with another quick video, and this is going to be particularly for extremely new players to Path of Exile. It's just going to be a quick one on when to use each currency. Now, this can be a little bit build specific, so I will be using my own build for examples, and I won't have, so I'm an Infernalist minion summoner, so I won't have as good examples for other builds, but I'll have some tips and tricks for everybody. So we'll start up with the Orb of Transmutation. Now, this is what you're using to start off an item. It'll make a normal or white item turn it blue. Now, a blue item or a magic item, and we'll use these terms interchangeably, and yeah, there will be a lot of terms they'll have to learn in Path of Exile. It is a pretty complicated game, so hopefully you'll be able to keep up with that. But a blue item can have a prefix and a suffix. So prefix is the stats that come before the name of the item, and a suffix is the stats that come after the name of an item. Now, while blue, you would start off, and I can just give an example here with, I'll use this topaz ring. So I would use a Orb of Transmutation on a ring. Now it has mana. I can use that augmentation and turn it blue. Now I could further use a Regal to make it rare, but either way, Augment will basically fill in, right? So if the Transmute will give me a prefix, the Augment will give me a suffix, or vice versa. Regal will be a random. I will cover Omens a little bit before the end as well to give some additional tips there, but I haven't had that many Omens, so I can't go too into that. Now, when do you actually use Transmutes when playing the game? It's all well and good of what they do, but when am I actually using this? So right now, I'm using an item filter, and ideally you want to specialize your own, but it is hard to code one and make one. Neversinks is a really good base to start with. It, to the best of my knowledge, does not hide anything, and we'll link Neversinks filter in the description down below. I have my own, but I don't recommend it because it hides so much stuff that it would be complicated for a new player. Now, to install a filter, you would just open this folder, the text file you download from Neversing, you would put that in a text file and save it as .filter. Boom. And then you would load it there. Now, that will help highlight things. So there will be individual things, like for my build, what I'm using Transmutes and Augments on, like while mapping, I'll be looking for boots, right? I really want new boots, and generally most energy shield bases. Now, I'm mostly keeping an eye out for the expert bases, and the way expert, advanced, and those things that you've seen work is, if you're familiar with Diablo 2, it's like normal, nightmare, and hell bases. And if you're not, it's basically they have a larger amount of base energy shield on the item. Think of it as early, medium, and late game items, right? So the expert are the late game bases. There are some like advanced cases where the early game bases are useful, for warrior, for example, but I don't really want to go into that because it's kind of overloading you, and for most people's builds it's not going to be relevant. So most people will be able to focus on the expert bases. So if I find expert wrapped sandals, etc., I will throw a transmute on them. I'm on an augment, and let's say that I get 20, 25, 30 movement speed and maybe 15 or 30 fire resist, then I will continue and I will use a Regal on that item, and we'll continue from there. So that brings us into Regal. I will usually use this on an item that has potential, right? For example, if I have a Scepter and the stats that I'm looking for my build is plus level of minion skills, and minion life is good, and spirit. So let's say that I have a blue Scepter and it has 40% increased spirit and plus 4 minion skills. I'm already very happy about this Scepter, and I'm very happy to use a Regal to continue. And the further iteration of this is use Exalted Orbs to fill in your item. However, let's say that this has 13% accuracy and 13% cast speed or something like that, or 52 mana. There's no reason for me to use a Regal Orb because I'm not really interested in where this item can go. And that's how I'm treating most of the items. So I'm picking up a lot of rings and using Transmutes on those because rings are very hard to come by. So generally on most of these white bases, anything that I'm very likely to use for my class, and you have to figure that out for yourself. Like for me, right, it's expert on most of the energy shield gloves, same with the helmets, and same with the boots. I'll use the Transmute, I'll use an Augment, and then I'll keep it. Now, there is a really good feature I want to mention as well. It's not super orb related, but you can see here that I have a tab called 3 to 1. And when I've regaled 3 different items, I keep them, and I use the Reforger. You unlock this in Act 3 from, like, I think it's the Molten Lava guy, And I reforge, it's basically like getting an additional attempt at an item. Now, later on, when you're swimming in gear, you don't necessarily need to do this, but if you're solo self-found or you're very early on, then this can be really useful. And it works on both blue and rare items. They need to be 3 of the same base, same rarity. So that can be really useful when you're desperate for gear. Now, a thing worth mentioning in Path of Exile, and this is a little bit of an overload, it's a little bit complicated, but hopefully I can break it down enough for you. There's something in Path of Exile called item level. You can see it by holding Alt. You can see that this scepter has an item level of 82. Now, if I Google PoEDB2, it'll give me this website. And a good thing here is I click here at the top, click modifiers, and now I can get a rough idea by clicking on Scepter of what item level breakpoints are important for me. So the number one thing I care about is minion skills. So I can see here that from 55 on, I cared a lot about crafting scepters. I really wanted from item level 55, cared a little bit more about gambling, a little bit more about crafting them, because at 54, you just can't hit +4. You can only hit +3. And then you don't have an upgrade all the way till 81. So now that I am at the end game, I'm being very careful. I'm only doing item level 81 scepters or higher, and I'm 3 to 1ing those just for an extra attempt. But this website's really, really important. It's PoEDB2. Let's move on to when do you use a Chaos Orb? Now, I don't know if I have any example items. I'll look here. So this is my tab where I keep like useful items, but they're not quite there yet. This is a perfect example. So I'm not going to do this on this item because this is something I'd be using on a warrior. It's not something I'd be using on the character I'm playing, and I don't have that many chaos. But if I was playing a warrior, this would be a perfect item to use a Chaos Orb on. It has really good suffixes, which is the cold, the chaos, and the lightning resist, and it has useful prefixes. It does have the armor, it has the life, but it has no movement speed. So a big issue here is I need these boots to get movement speed, or I cannot use them at all. So this would be one example where chaos would be good, where like this item is good, but now very often the chaos will ruin the item, but it has a chance to make something really good. Another example, for example, a chest piece. Let's say that this had the 100% energy shield and the hybrid that it does, which is the middle roll there. That's the tier 3 with 23 energy shield and 24 life. That's actually one stat. And let's say that the last stat was 13 spirit or 50 life. Well, then I would use a chaos to hope that it would hit that last stat and turn it into flat energy shield, like it's what I have right now. And obviously this can go a lot higher. So Chaos Orbs are for when the item are almost good, but it's not quite there yet. Exalted Orb again is for when you have hit something, it's something that's already usable, then you want to keep exalting it. You do, especially in the game, get a lot of exalts at the end game. Divine Orb, for most players that are watching this video that are new, you are not going to use them. You're probably better off selling them to get smaller currency, or use them to buy an item that is a big upgrade from your build if you're following a build guide, something like that. And what divines actually do is they change the numeric values of an item, including the implicit. So for example, the implicit here would be the chaos resists, and the explicits or the affixes are like the one like 7 to 11 and 12 to 17 fire damage. Now it can only change the numbers within the tiers. So it can't make this 10 to 14 mana become 20 to 25. Can only change it within the tiers. As an example of what I used it on, there are some items that are really, really good to divine. There's a belt that I don't remember the name of right now. I think my chat is about to tell me, but it's got 40 to 80% increased effect of your rings. There's the ultimatum shield called Maxolotl. That's really good. Venturous Gamble is really good. Oh yeah, Ingenuity is the belt. So there are some things that are really good to divine, but most players watching this video that are new should not be using it. Orb of Annulment. You might be thinking, is this not just a Chaos Orb? It is. So you should not use the Orb of Annulment as standalone. But there are omens that affect the annulment. I don't have one, sadly, to show you. They are on PoEDB, but it's basically your next Orb of Annulment, if activated, you have to right-click them, will remove a prefix or will remove a suffix. And then it can be very useful because then you can maybe target something and have a big chance at fixing your item. So that's what annulments are for. As a new player, I would sell them. I wouldn't worry about it. You're probably not going to use it. Chance Orbs. I kind of want to make a separate video on these are the items to chance, but Stellar Amulets and Sapphire Rings are quite good. Heavy Belts are quite popular. They're the ones I know at the moment, but I want to make a full overview on what's good to chance and why. Now, not every item can be chanced. If it's a boss unique, like Hand of Wisdom in Action, it cannot be chanced at all, and you have to drop it from the boss. So for example, I believe it's Utility Belt. If you try to use a Chance Orb on it, just says failed because there is no unique for that belt. Vaal Orb. Now this is normally the last thing you do to an item, and I do this a lot on side grades when I already have an upgrade. So for example, my chest, it was something like 680 energy shield or around that, and I already had a chest very similar to it. Now, since I had two and they were both kind of like, I hit a Vaal Orb on it, and boom, I got that third socket getting 20% increased energy shield from the rune. Boom. Now it's a bigger upgrade. And I've done the same on another helmet. So I already have this helmet. It's basically a +2 helmet with some resist and a little bit of energy shield. Well, I found this and I was like, I mean, maybe I can use it later if I hit a Vaal Orb. And I did. So now I have this as like a backup, or I could put soul cores in it, which is runes, special runes from Ultimatum. I don't have a full overview of them yet. I haven't done much Ultimatum. But that's these. Mirror of Kalandra. This is basically used when somebody has spent a large amount of currency perfecting an item or randomly dropped something that's almost perfect and you're super unlikely to recreate. It copies an item, so you would give them the mirror and usually a fee. I'm not very familiar with PoE 2 mirrors yet because the game is so fresh, but usually you would give them a mirror and a fee, and then they give you back a copy of the item. And it's very, very unlikely that you will drop one, but they are worth a lot. Lesser Orb of Jeweler. So there's some neat tricks here, especially with Vaal Orbs. So early game, you're not going to have any greater jewelers and you're not going to have any perfect jewelers. But what you can do is you can use any level, by the way, as long as it can get your gem. I'll give you a quick example here. But let's say I do Skeletal Sniper, engrave that, and then I use one Lesser Jeweler. Now, if I use a Vaal Orb, I'm so low on Vaal Orbs, I don't really want to waste one to show you because it's a small chance it's going to hit anyway. But there's a chance that it will go to 4 sockets or +1 level up the gem. Now, afterwards, you cannot change it except for leveling it up, which is really nice. The fact that we can still level it up afterwards means that you can actually use your low level gems for this. But having that like 12 or 25% chance or whatever it is of going +1 socket means that you can get a very early 4 support gems, way before you actually find Greater Jeweler Orbs. So I was doing that quite a lot. Greater Jeweler Orb and Perfect Jeweler Orb, they are more rare. If you do want to try to farm them, taking local knowledge and doing grass biomaps, so just where it's grass everywhere and it's green around them, will give you a way bigger chance of drop them. But these are basically what you use for your main gem later in the build. Gemcutter Prisms, really make sure that your gem actually has something useful. For example, here, if I hold Alt and hold over Explosive Demise, the only thing it does for an Arcanist is 4% more of minion's life as damage, but only on this ability, so it does nothing otherwise. I didn't actually realize that, and on my first time, accidentally 20 qualityed it for no reason. So that was a little annoying, not super worth it. But for example, if I hold Alt on Flammability, 20 quality from a Gemcutter Prism gives 10% curse effect, which is effectively just more damage for me. And if you're a Path of Exile 1 player, it has a different behavior in PoE 2. It's 5% quality per GCP. So use them on your main gems and where you think it'll improve your build the most. Class Bar Bubble. A lot of builds aren't using life and mana flasks, but once you have flasks you're happy with, you can improve the quality with these, similar to the way armor scraps and whetstones and etchers are quality for their respective things. Now, the rarest ones are these. That's why I've tried so hard to make sure I pick up a lot of them. I was very, very low on these in the start. You get them by salvaging scepters, wands, staves with quality on them. And these are from armor and these are from whetstones. And they will increase the base energy shield, armor, or evasion. On a scepter, it'll increase the spirit. On a wand or a staff, it'll give quality to that implicit spell. So here, if I put quality on this, it'll give as if you did Gemcutter Prisms on Sigil of Power. So you get 20 quality on it, basically. Artificer Orb, this will give you sockets. And if you're using a Vaal Orb, which can't just be used on gems, it can be used on gear as well. It has a lot of different outcomes. It can give plus sockets, it can give plus minions, it can give plus spirit, it can give increased magnitude. So this 50 spirit could become 60, I think is the max it could do. So it has loads of cool outcomes. I honestly don't have a full list, but they're pretty good. It's just they can ruin your item as well. 25% chance to ruin the item. That's pretty much all the orbs. See, I did say I was going to cover Omens a little bit as well. I have this, which is, while this item is active, your next Orb of Alchemy will result in a maximum number of prefixes. So I would use that for my build on the Expert Hexer chests or something. Something where I really want Energy Shield. And this one, which is the same with suffixes, I would use that on Scepters. But I would be saving them for item level 81 or 82. Because, honestly, for the most part, just Transmute and Auging is kind of okay already. Also, rings actually would be really good for this one with the suffixes. Maybe I might use one next time I get an Amethyst ring. I'm so desperate for good rings. Now, you do have essences as well, so we'll do a quick coverage of that. I don't use these enough. I probably should be using them more just to get like some basic resists. This one is really good to use on Energy Shield gear. Obviously, we have the life one. This would be really good for warriors and stuff like that. If you find a good chest, and you might have seen some of the endgame ones can have cool implicits like +1 maximum resistances or +40 life, and then throwing a Essence of the Body and hoping you get a high life roll, right? Like you obviously want something 160, not 50. And then greater essences, they are similar to these. These can only be used when the item is white and they go to blue. And these can be used when they are blue and they go to rare. So these are far rarer and far stronger. I haven't really used a lot of these so far. The best use I can think of is for physical weapons, where you start off with this to get a good physical roll, and then you augment, hope for whatever, and then you use a greater Essence of Torment to really try to hit that second physical roll. So I hope that's a brief overview that gives you some help with orbs and currencies and how to use them. Obviously, it is a complicated subject and something that we could make hours and hours of guides, but I wanted to try to do like a very quick and dirty guide just for new players to give you a rough overview on when to use currencies. And no, you cannot upgrade essences. Either way, I hope it helped. Thanks for watching. Sub if you liked the video, but try to die less than I do.